Hello, everybody, and welcome back to MUP Pannilore. Mark's not here today, but I am Wiki Dave, and with me, we have. Okay, how are we gonna? Do you want to go by your pen name today, or do you want to go by Danny Graves? Danny
Just call me
Graves.
Danny and we'll get away with
Danny.
it.
Um, so today we're going to be interviewing Danny Graves about the new book Rage and Grace. Now, the reason why I bring the pen name thing up straight away is you're probably, if you've listened to Mutt before, you probably have heard Danny. He's done the wonderful the Forces of Nature review later this week. The Ogre review will be coming out, and you'll hear Danny's name on it. However, he did write this book, so I guess let's address the elephant in the room. Why a pen name, Danny? Why are you not going by Danny Graves on this one?
It's a bit of future proofing. Obviously, it's a pain in the ass in the Kings of War community because it's a Kings of War novel, and I want to be promoting it as Danny Graves, but I also want to be writing in the future. And it's 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't really have cared so much. But what with social media and the internet being a vile bed of villainy and disgusting cancel culture hell.
Getting off on a cheerful note, everybody.
It's just a little bit of detachment from my real life. It's only going to come up if I get rich and famous. Otherwise, it's not a problem.
Which is fair enough. So other than all the crimes you secretly have committed, why D.R.Chester? I guess why that particular name? Is there some kind of origin behind that pen name, or is it just like you threw random darts at a wall and that's what came up?
It's my maiden name.
Oh. All right. That's fair enough. I mean, I can't really talk. I go by Wiki Dave. I don't use my full name. I can say my full name. I'm not ashamed of my full name is David Heads, and it's just lame. So I always go by Wiki Dave. It's a lot more punchy. But I completely get it, and I think that is always something people have to kind of battle. Is like if you, I'm very much like you. I wouldn't want to be like pulled on like walking down the road and someone recognized me and something like that. That's not me. So I would probably go down the same route you did with the pen name. It's just quite really hard, especially when you're getting started like yourself, to advertise the work when you're using a pen name as well. So it's like a double-edged sword. If you end up getting, and hopefully you do, getting rich and famous and everyone knows your name, there's no problem with that name. But initially, it's really hard to push the work.
Well, no, it wouldn't be under normal circumstances of being an author. It's just a problem in the Kings of War community and with Mantic.
Oh, really?
Because obviously everybody knows me as Danny Graves.
Yeah, true, very true.
Tournaments and events. And to be fair, I'm so loud. Most people know that I've written a book by this point anyway. So it's not been quite as annoying as I thought it would be.
Oh, okay. I thought it would be super annoying, but I guess that's why. That's why we asked the question.
Most people are like, who's D.R.Chester? It's like, you know damn well who D.R.Chester is. Now buy the damn thing.
Which is fair enough. All right. Well, how about we'll jump into it, because this isn't the first Kings of War, let's say, story that you've written. You did a short story called Breath of the Desert, and that was with the Ogres and Emperor of Dust. So I guess, how did that originate? And I will leave a link down below of that short story. So if you want to read it yourself for free, go nuts. It's still up, but it also mentions that's when you were working on the novel, and this was back in 2022. So I'm assuming it's this novel, but I guess, how did that short story come about, and is Rage and Grace connected to all the way back there then?
Originally, I started off when Mantic put out, Winged Hussar put out a thing looking for new authors. I was like, well, I can do that. So part of it was you write out the synopsis and give a 10,000 word treatment of your story, just so they know that you're a decent enough writer, and then they'll consider it. So I was being smart about it. Listening to the podcast, I know they wanted to promote their own IP. So I started off doing a Basilian and Abyssal one, and I sent it off. And about 3-4 weeks later, I got the email back saying, "Oh, we've just released a book with Basilians and Abyssals." So it's like, I know, because Steps to Deliverance had arrived in the post the day before, and I looked through it and went,
Yeah,
oh,
that was the first one. Yeah.
And then also it had a corrupted sisterhood in it as well. And then straight away, Ben Stoddard did the second book. I was like, seriously, man, come on, give me a break. But I rewrote a new one with Elves and Night Stalkers. Ogres were in it as well, Force of Nature. But anyway, I sent it back and they said, well, we're kind of interested. And so Matt Gilbert sent me a revised version because he wanted Twilight Kin and Sylvan-Kin in it. So a lot of my original stuff's in there, the main themes, but he sent me back some stuff that he wanted in as well. So that kind of revised the story. So I had to work out how I was going to write that. Around about the same time, we did during COVID, it was the Plague and Pestilence. Winged Hussar did like it was almost like a competition to authors to submit a short story. And it's an online compilation for people to read during COVID. It's one of those things to keep people going. And
I think it's still there. I'll put a link down below. I'm pretty sure it's still up. You can still download it. Yeah.
So that was quite a good little one. And my timeline's completely mixed up now, but I started on the novel. I handed in my first draft a year early. So about 6 years ago now. And then because I was on the list, Matt Gilbert was like, I need somebody to promote the Ogres and Undead Empire Dust. So I did that short story that got put up on the website. And that's how I got a MUP originally, actually, because Chris mentioned it and said it was really good. So I just sent him a little message saying, hey, dude, thanks for that. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the great feedback. And we just started chatting. Then we met up at Clash and we bonded over 90s alternative rock music. He's like, you know that band? Well, you've heard of the Yo-Yos? No one's heard of the Yo-Yos. Oh my God, I love the Yo-Yos. Stuff like that.
European 90s rock bands are a different like a different category. Like I thought I was big into it. Then I went over there for a little while, and then I was like, I don't know any of these bands. I don't know what you guys were doing in the 90s. That it just definitely wasn't part of my scene. But then again, I was like 5. But still, it's definitely not something I've heard of when I come back to New Zealand.
I'm a massive music nerd as well, so I learn a lot about, listen to a lot of podcasts about history of music, 1950s all the way onwards. I am the classic case of the small town boy who left the country, moved to the big city to be a rock and roll star. So I studied at the Academy of Contemporary Music in Guildford. I do actually have a diploma in being a rock star, so I am qualified as a rock star. I played in bands.
What have you done with the diploma since, Danny? What have you done with it?
Honestly, I haven't a bloody clue where it is now, but it's not what you got.
Just with any diploma nowadays, it's just a piece of paper on a wall. Like, let's be honest, people go for a BA and it's just there, and you end up doing something completely opposite.
But I toured and played in bands for years, didn't really get the success that I wanted, and I also made the horrific cliche of going out with the lead singer, and it all went horribly wrong. And it was like,
as it does. As it always does in the rock star world, you never hear successful marriages. It's very rare.
I can't deny I had a lot of fun. The rock and roll lifestyle, a lot of fun. Some might even say too much fun. I should write it all down.
I don't think any rock star would agree with that.
If we ever meet up for a beer one day, I'll tell you everything, but I can't talk about it.
I'll hold you to that, because that beer would be delicious considering where I'm currently at. Anyway, well, diving back, because the reason why I bring up Breath of the Desert, it is still to this day the only ogre story we've really got. We're still waiting for an ogre novel or ogre-centric novel. Yeah, we've had no ogres in it, so that was just a really good dip. So I'm guessing from the sounds of it, the concept of the book came before the short story. So I'm guessing, what's the origins of the story? Well, how did it begin? Actually, before we dive into the origins, I guess I want you to pitch it. So sell us the story right now for someone that doesn't know what Rage of Grace is about. Without reading the back of the book, sell the story, because I think it's a really cool story, but I'd like to hear it straight from your mouth how you would sell it to somebody.
I've always been really interested in the psychology of things, why people do what they do, what motivates them. And I read all of the background in the third edition book, and I really got stuck on the half-elf berserkers, because we're all kind of sane people, but what actually possesses somebody to strip down to their knickers without armor, running through the snow, charge at the enemy, going nuts? It's not a sane psychology. It's I mean, we play like games and we think berserkers are like this, but you can't be berserk 100% of the time. It's exhausting. So what would somebody actually have to go through in their mind to reach a mental state where they would become a berserker? And that's always fascinated me. A lot of it has to do with the Warhammer lore around dwarf slayers as well. They have like they can't deal with shame. It's just like this deep cultural thing where it affects them so badly they can't come to terms with it. They can't survive in the regular society, so they shave their head, strip down to the pants, take the biggest axe, and just go out into the wild and try and have a glorious death. But it's a proactive death. They're trying to kill the biggest monster they can, and that type of psychology really shows a lot about a society. And we don't get a lot of things like that in Kings of War. It's got a massive background. It's very broad, but it's very shallow. We don't get a lot of really deep, in-depth dives into characters. I felt that was something missing. So, yeah. So basically, the initial concept was take a half elf, and see what happens to them in that journey, up to the point where they end up in the Northern Alliance as a berserker. So obviously this book only covers the first part of that journey, but what would you have to do to break somebody's mind to make them like that?
Yeah.
And what kind of emotional trauma would they have to go through? And how would that fit in the world of Pannilore? So there's a lot of, I say, there's lots of fighting and there are lots of battles in this, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper with the psychology and the almost like the human experience of it.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, especially when you're building a universe like Pannilore, and it's not always going to be about tabletop battles, because that's this fantasy world has kind of evolved to become more than that. You got Armada, but you also want to have these more grounded stories that aren't always going to be about the big flashy battles. It's about the journey, the hero's journey, whatever journey you want to be telling. And I think that's so important to establish these kind of more darker stories, as you refer to, because the world is a lot darker. There is a lot of darkness in a world like this where war is constantly happening. So to have a more darker, more, I don't know if grounded is the word, considering what's the fantasy element of everything, but grounded in terms of the psychology and what breaks somebody, the mind and all that stuff. I think that's really important, especially going forward as the world evolves and grows. And I think this is to be fair, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Danny. Haven't finished the book yet. I've gone through it, and it's a big chunk. I do the wiki, I do a lot of stuff, but I have been definitely reading it, and I think you definitely get more psychological, more kind of. It's definitely a different feel. It's definitely a different feel type of novel, and I think that's so important to show the different stories you can tell.
Yeah, it's one of the things that people forget about fantasy. It's supposed to be fantastical, but everything that all the fantasy, all the myths, all the legends, they've all come from human brains.
Yeah.
So anything we put into it has some form of human element. So why are we scared of Night Stalkers? It's because there are things in our brain that deep down we have a fear, fight or flight response to. Some of it's like genetic, some of it's like historical, I mean, why are we afraid of tentacles? Tentacles are marvelous things. You can do loads with tentacles, but we don't have them. And the creepy
Danny,
weird
we don't
things...
need to go into that. We don't need to go into that. This is not that type of podcast.
But that's the thing underneath the water. You've seen an octopus or you've seen a squid. It's terrifying. You don't know what's under there. I mean, we do now because we've got cameras, we've got submarines, we've got deep sea diving, but there's still that deep underneath fear that when you get in that water, you don't know what's underneath. And because it's a fantasy setting, we don't know. So I wanted to almost bring back a sense of that fantastical, a sense of like that mystery with it. Because a lot of fantasy these days, I call it franchise fantasy. So, I mean, you're a prime example of this, Dave. I'm sorry to pick on you right now, but when we see a world and we like it, we want to know everything about it.
Yeah.
So that's a dragon. I want to know how big it is. I want to know its wingspan. I want to know where it fits in the lore. How long do they live? What creatures ride them? Could another type of creature ride them? And it's the nerds arguing over who'd win in a fight, Superman or Spider. We want to... It's a separate bit of existence that we want to dive into so completely that we ask all these weird questions and we want to know all this extra stuff. And because originally when fantasy with Tolkien and all the early Games Workshop stuff with like Realm of Chaos in the 80s, Conan, it was all still quite fantastical. We didn't know about it yet. It was all somehow brand new and exciting. But because we've analysed everything and we've had so many repeats of the same themes and the same tropes over the years, it's almost become like, this is this trope. This is exactly what this story's like. We try and pigeonhole everything. Again, like with music, this is thrash metal. This is death, thrash, goth metal. Everything gets categorised, puts into its place. And I think somewhere along the lines, especially with commercialisation, originally it was just like the Lord of the Rings book. I've got 3 rubber ducks of Frodo, Legolas, and Gandalf on my windowsill, which is like years ago that'd be unthinkable. But under modern geek culture, it's almost like commonplace. So it's almost become commercialized. And I wanted to inject a little bit more of that old original fantasticalness into the story. I wanted it to be creepy. So, how old are you now?
You definitely achieved that. Yeah.
How old are you now? Yeah.
I'm 38.
38. So, yeah. So you'll be coming in round to movies and things round about where CGI started to take over.
Yeah, I mean, Lord of the Rings was pretty big, and then that was like 2001, and that was my, I guess, college or high school, wherever you want to call it. That was pretty much where everything was kicking in. Because I mean, literally, Weta's like down the road from where I live, so we've always been kind of we've got all that kind of CGI and Avatar and all that stuff. So that's always been part of, you could say, my viewing experience when it comes to show. But I mean, back in the day, I was reading, Marvel and all that before it was Marvelized, if you could say, and I love those not fantasy stories, but the superhero stories. And I The Hobbit was the first book I ever got. I've still got it on my bookshelf over there. And so it was definitely, I've always been, and I was a Warhammer player back in the 90s as well. I've still got my original, my Dwarfs book that I have, and I've always loved that kind of world. And CGI it's definitely changed things, but it's also helped visualize how other people has interpreted these fantasy worlds. And I think that's been, rather interesting, seeing other people's interpretations. But I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
but as it's moved away from more practical effects, again, it's moved to more. I mean, watch some Marvel movies. It's almost like watching cartoons. It's taken
sadly,
away give that almost human element. So I grew up watching things like The Dark Crystal and Legend.
Oh yeah,
Legend's terrifying. If you watch that when you're like 6 or 7 years old, it's just like, oh my god. But I mean, it's a kids' fantasy movie, but the things they tortured us with when we were little, the never-ending story, Jesus, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Growing up with that sense of the fantastical, watching like, I mean, I must have been what, 10 or 11, snuck down to my mate's house and we watched like Alien and Aliens. I mean, I was watching Predator when I was like 13. It's like, oh, that's what I see in
Gremlins
fun.
freaked me out. When I first watched Gremlins, that freaked me out because that was a lot practical as well.
And Critters as well. That was like a knockoff
Oh,
Gremlins.
yeah.
That and Troll. That's proper
Oh,
creepy. So all these, I've tried watching. I've watched a lot of these as I was an adult. I've not managed to watch Critters again yet. Growing up in the country, that little Russell, you know, it's a rat down in the barn, but you're just waiting for those two little red glowing eyes to look back at you.
I think the best representation of what you're describing for me is the movie Return to Oz. You ever seen that?
Oh yeah, with the wheelies.
Yeah, with the wheelies and TikTok and the weird scare. Oh, it's not scare. Was it a scarecrow? What was it? It was a pumpkin head. The jack-o'-lantern dude. That one freaked me out. That took me years to rewatch because I watched that as a kid, and that's exactly I think what you're referring to. If you watch it now, it's pretty tame. But back then, that freaky kind of, and I think that's why Peter Jackson did so well, is that he did a really good blend of practical versus CGI. And then after that point, I think we've gone too far into the CGI. And I mean, the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings is amazing. I mean, let alone the books being amazing, the way the filmmaking was done, especially in a time when everyone was poo-pooing Lord of the Rings before the first one came out, especially here in New Zealand. It wasn't exactly the Lord of the Rings that we know. It was definitely a very ambitious project that was amazing for the film industry, but everyone had huge doubts about it because nothing like this had been pulled off before. But when you still watch it nowadays, I think one of the key things that hold up really well is the practical effects, and one of the things that don't hold up very well is the CGI, which is why I think those movies are still good now, because a lot of it is still practical. And I get what you're saying where the CGI kind of warps all that nowadays, but I do think I think people are starting to bring it back slowly. It's hard to get, I think, the funding for it, the execs to go, yeah, it's fine doing practical, we're going to give you all these thousands of millions of dollars to do it, because they feel CGI is safer. Sadly, that's just the commercialization of the whole thing.
Cool. So the reason I started going on about this is it's that childhood fear, the things that scare us as children. And we've all been children. Everybody can understand that childhood fear, and that's what I've tried to put in the book. So there's childhood things like bullying, dealing with parents, the fears in the world. There's one bit where she's like, there's a creepy basement, and it's all these childhood terrors that, and we look at them now and like, I was stupid when I was 6. But at the time it was very real and it was very terrifying. So this book as well, it has that element, and it's at that point where she's dealing with the youthful psychological horror, and then she's learning about the adult psychological horror that's actually out in the real world in Pannilore, and she's dealing with the Twilight Kin and the Night Stalkers, which are the worst of the worst. So it's almost like a coming of age story. So she's growing, she's realizing the terrors of childhood are being replaced with the terrors of adulthood. And that is a terrifying, we've all been through puberty, that's scary enough, but imagine it with Night Stalkers as well, Dave.
Yeah, and everything trying to kill you. I guess we'll go into this element then, because you have been touching on it. I'm curious to how you interpret Elves. I think Elves, this is the first Elf book. We should say it out there. This is the first full kind of Elf book that really dives into, how Elf thinks, how the culture is, and especially Sylvian kin. So I guess, what was your interpretation of a Pannilore elf? Because there's all, you got the Lord of the Rings kind of elf, and then you've got the Warhammer Fantasy type of elf, and you've got all these different interpretations. I guess, what was your interpretation of elves in this world that makes it feel a little bit different for yourself?
It's like what I was saying earlier about everything in fantasy has that human element. It comes from our brains. So when you're looking at something like a dwarf that has human characteristics, that we look at, they're sturdy, they're tough, they like being underground, they're hard workers, they're very grim people, whereas elves, they're more flighty, they're supposed to be more beautiful, they live longer, which is a massive psychological touchstone to play with. They're very graceful, they appreciate art and fine clothes. If you ever mention elves on social media, you'll then get 10 posts saying, elves suck, I hate elves.
Yeah, you do. Sadly, you get that a lot, especially in the Kings of War universe. And I think that's tied more into the fact that we haven't really got a lot of new models for them. And I think everyone's a little bit bitter about that. So that extends into the elven kind of history.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people don't like elves because they're fancy. You know, there's a lot of jokes about.
You mean in general? Okay.
And floaty and that type of thing. So I thought about how to approach it, and in the end, I tried to ignore the fact that they were elves altogether and just write that they were characters with those. So I concentrated on the characters, but they had those human aspects, so people could relate to them while still understanding that they are elves because they have a lot of those things about them. So there's the pomposities there, the being long lived and having that level of wisdom that comes with old age, that's there. The self-righteousness of being better because they are long lived, and they've got all this magnificent, graceful, beautiful accoutrements, so they have natural sensation that they are better than perhaps a dwarf or a human. So rather than it being, I'm an elf, I'm better because of this, it's I'm better because of all of this, I just happen to be an elf. I concentrated on the characters being characters rather than these are elves. Elves behave like this. This is what we've got to pigeonhole them as. And especially when you've got, in this book, I've got elves, I've got Sylvankin, and I've got Twilightkin as well. So they're all elves.
You got Glade Walkers as well.
Glade Walkers in this, they're the Fae, the Sylvan.
Well, they're not elves, but yeah, you got that other race to kind of interpret it.
Oh, you mean
the walking trees,
forest shamblers?
Yeah. The Glade Walkers is their race is the walking trees kind of deal.
No, the Glade Walkers are elves as part of the Sylvankin. You're thinking about forest shamblers with the walking trees.
Yeah, I'm getting them mixed up. Sorry. My bad. Sorry. It's early. Ignore that. Let's move on. No, I'm not even going to cut that. This is going to be put in there. Let's just anyway, Danny. What are you saying?
It's all right, Dave. I've listened to the podcast before. We're used to it. I think we should actually start a drinking game. Every time you pronounce Rordia wrong, we have to do a shot.
Oh, you guys would get so drunk. You guys, I mean, I can't drink anymore, sadly, but it would be awesome
really happy.
just to watch.
Yeah,
but like, and then that would annoy me as well because I would want to get drunk. I deserve it. I deserve the punishment. No, don't. I forget. It's PM for Danny. It's AM for me. I can't. Anyway,
I've been working out.
I've ruined your flow. Sorry.
30-degree heat. I work outside, so working outside all day in the 30-degree heat. It's been painful, really.
Well, I'm sitting here with a heater underneath my desk with my feet in front of it. So it's definitely it's quite funny. I even just took off just before we started recording for a little inside baseball. I took off my robe and that was keeping me nice and warm. So I'm actually very cold right now. So it's quite funny you guys are going through this massive heat wave. It just shows you global warming is real. Anyway, let's move on to what you were saying there, Danny.
Speaking of wardrobe malfunctions, you did the editing on the ogre one. I think it was the ogre one. I was chatting with Matthias, and I was like, "Oh yeah, there's this really good hobby tool." And I stood up to pick it up, and I forgot I didn't have any trousers on, so I put my crotch right in front of it.
Well, I'll be editing that tomorrow, so that's going to be fun to see it.
My pants on a podcast.
I'll put that as a little snippet at the end of the YouTube. How about that? I'll cut that out and just put that right at the end of that YouTube video.
I've done far worse. It's fine. So anyway, yeah, elves. So Twilight Kin are obviously quite a tricky subject because them and Night Stalkers, I mean, they're the worst of the worst. It's how far do you push the envelope of what's bad and what's evil? My main worry was, I mean, you've had Brandon on the show, haven't you?
Yeah.
Brandon is so lovely, it's sickening. He's adorable as a human being. He's absolutely lovely. I mean, if you look at his Facebook, he's there with a beautiful family, and they're all at Disney World or something with a big mascot creature. I can't remember who it was, and it's absolutely adorable. You think, oh, that's cute. My profile picture's me as Slain from 2000 AD. He's like,
we should just mention that who Brandon is for those that are uninitiated. Brandon is the chief editor for Wingtizar Publishing. So all the Pannilore books go through essentially Brandon. He does his editing, signs off, and does a lot of back and forth between the authors. So just a little context there for anyone that's curious.
So my main worry was, I mean, the opening scene with the Twilight Kin. There's some form of torture. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but it's quite gross. If you go, when you've read it, I've done my job well. And if you vomit, please email me and tell me straight away that it has shocked you that much, because I'd love that.
And take a picture.
Yeah.
Take a picture just to prove
it. So writing that, I was there typing away. I'm like, Brandon's too nice for this. There's no way I'm going to get it past him. Bless him, he accepted all of it. I was like, oh, wow. So, yeah, how do you show pure evil? It's not like talking in the theater or like farting in an elevator and running away type of evil. You've got to put some real bad stuff in there to, this is the pinnacle of what this race is like. And once you set that mental benchmark of, it doesn't even have to be the whole time. It's like you punch somebody once in the face hard enough, they don't want to get punched again. They know that punching is bad. So yeah, straight out, I put that scene in straight away. So it's almost like that visceral punch, but like, oh yeah, these are the bad guys. I know this. So after that, I can tone it down a little bit and get more into the characters and how they behave within a culture like that. There's still other grosser stuff afterwards, but once you've mentally established that about Twilight Kin, they're basically just this. Again, they're just elves. They're just humans, but they have that mentality mindset, and it's a human mentality mindset as well. I mean,
it all comes from that pool. It all comes from the human element, regardless of which race we're talking about. What actually, Maypay, we'll jump into one of the viewer questions that we had from Matthias. So if you ever want to have your question read out when we're doing an interview, make sure you join the Discord, because I do put a shout out for questions. But basically, Matthias asks, curious to how it is to have a longer wait time between writing and the release and the urge to come back and change things. So as we said way back at the beginning of this interview, you started 2022, around that period, but we've only come out here 4 years later with the book actually being released. I guess how much changed from the original there to the actual release, and even the journey in between? Did you change quite a lot? Was it pretty concrete and it's just tuning around the edges? How was that journey?
The basic story, I knocked it out fairly quickly. As I said, my first draft was in a year early. Brandon was like, we've got loads of books to come out before you take your time. But I still knocked it out. The problem was, because it sat there for so long, and then we had COVID, so that knocked like the entire publishing industry back a year, 2 years. Brandon, at the time, he was working full-time as a chemist in the pandemic. So he was not having much time to edit stuff. He's gone full-time now, and like I say, things are racing through beautifully. But at that time, it was kind of like sorry, Danny, you're kind of like at the end of the release schedule anyway, and we've got all this to do first. It's frustrating, and then we got the Twilight Kin came out as a brand new race, and they rewrote a lot of the background, didn't they? So
Yeah,
I've
that
written
was in the
story
2025 Clash. Was that 2025 Clash of Kings?
I think it
Clash
was
Kings book. Yeah.
24. I think
Or
it was.
2024, 24, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. And that they redid it, which was definitely long overdue, especially because the Twilight King had been around since first edition, and a lot of the lore didn't really make sense to how the race had actually evolved. So I think your book still fits in nicely. So did you change a lot when that happened, or?
A lot of it with the Twilight Kin, because the problem is there's an abyssal character in there, and I was like, well, I'm either gonna have to change this character, but I can't change it to another Twilight Kin because of that then it'll be too much like these other characters. And I was like, this abyssal character really ties the story together from that aspect. And I was like, what do I do? And I read all the new background through, and I was actually struck me. I was like, actually, I can still keep it in because in the Twilight Kin background, they've basically got rid of all the abyssals from the list, but in there,
Yeah.
there's still dark Twilight Kin within the culture that still fraternize with the demons. I was like, that's actually a really nice angle. So that kind of puts the Twilight Kin that I'm writing about, they're almost like on the fringes of that culture, but still very much part of it. And a lot of the times when you're studying a culture, you learn a lot more about it, not by studying the basic level human in that culture and what they do every day. You learn about it from all the more extreme elements of it. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
The extreme elements show more about the internal mental thinking about a culture than the basic people do. So having the Twilight Kin on the fringes of the Twilight Kin, it actually really worked for the story. So I kept the abyssal character in. But then I had the problem that the battle scene, I had elven spearmen, I had elven cavalry, I had elven bowmen, and we now no longer had any of them. But one of the things that's really annoys nerds is, me included, is when they change things. This transition that Mantic did was really good, taking it from the Twilight Kin list to the new one, focusing on Night Stalkers. They brought all the great new models out, but it didn't really explain where the old second edition Twilight Kin list went.
Yeah.
And there's one character in, and when Matt sent me what he wanted me to do, picking apart a story and trying to work out how to write it, it's almost like a puzzle. That bit needs to be there, but then I'm going to need to push that bit. And there's a big time jump there. So how am I going to explain that time jump? And you've got to cross-reference everything back and forth. And sometimes you think, how am I going to get this section in? How is she going to then fit in with this army? So I needed an extra character in as kind of like an in-between. And that gave me the option to be able to explain what happened to the Twilight Kin in the past. So
Yeah.
I basically wrote in what happened to that old second edition army and how it fit in the culture and where it went, and basically write it out so people understood it. It basically just bring that thing. As I was saying, where you write all the lore on the wiki and you're focused on this, things like that are an anomaly away from the wiki. It's like, well, we had this army and it was like this and it's just gone. Where's it gone? Why is it gone? How's it gone? So it was an opportunity for me to write that into the background as lore, but also explain why it had gone as part of the story. Because so having
I think that the Twilight Kin has had a really interesting journey of how it was originally conceptualized to what it is now. It definitely was an army that it seemed on the surface was just like another Wicked Ones kind of like, they worship the Wicked Ones and they come from the abyss, but then they change it to be more void centric, and it kind of changed. And while I was been doing the wiki, I came in only a few years ago when I got sick, and that's how I really jumped into all the lore. And so diving back into second edition, trying to find out the history there, I couldn't find a Twilight Kin list. However, one of the Clash of Kings books refers to changes for the Twilight Kin army, and then I found out the Twilight Kin army list was actually only ever released as a PDF. And so I found out that, and found out, how much, I think out of all the factions of all Kings of War, Twilight Kins probably had the most lore and unit changes in terms of what's now become. And I do like its modern interpretation, how it's this void, twisted kind of, nightmarish faction. I really think where it's landed has been amazing. But I think from a historical point of view, from the hobby, from the lore, everything, it's quite interesting seeing that journey. And the fact that you've tied in that kind of weirdness in that journey as well into the book, I think is really cool. And in hindsight, when people look back on it, I hope people kind of pick up on that. I think it's an amazing touch. But I think, if anyone's curious, the Twilight Kin is just gone from where it initially was to what it is now, and you could write a good story on that initially, just about how that's changed over the years. It took me forever to find that PD list. I had to use the Wayback Machine to actually find that list, because it's definitely not around anymore.
No. Somebody will have it stored on a hard drive somewhere at the back of the cupboard.
Oh no, I've got it now. I've stolen a copy and put it in my personal library. I put it in the chat for you there, Danny. But I'm not going to share it publicly. But I have updated the wiki to show all those different units there. But I think the fact that you've it's now documented, you could say, in your book, of that old history of our Twilight Kin to what they are now, and I think that's a really cool thing that you've thrown in there.
Yeah, so it's just like narratively tying off a loose end.
Yeah.
Cool. So
so I guess talk about elves in general. I guess if you want people to take away how elves are different, I don't know whether you want to specifically mention Twilight Kin or Sylvan Kin or just elves in general. How would you say elves in Pannilore are different than normal elves?
Which normal elves? The old, all the Tolkien's.
The old Tolkien generic kind of elves are these wise, old, they all care about traditions and all that kind of stuff. I guess I'm trying to sell elves more to people, because I don't think they get enough love in Pannilore, and I think that there is something to do with them there.
Yeah, I try, rather than it being strict. I tried to concentrate more on the characters than the actual lore building. I wanted to show how those characters exist within that society without explaining about the society. I wanted to put in sights and smells. I wanted to put in what the streets felt like to walk down. I didn't want to go, elves are this type of elf, live in this type of castle, in this type of forest, and they only ride this. I wanted it to be a very low-level cultural, how it feels to be part of that elf society, and the different types of elves going about the day. It's because when you see them on the battlefield, they're warriors, they're knights, they're dragon riders. That doesn't tell you a lot about the culture. It tells you a lot about how they fight.
Yeah.
As culture, it doesn't give you that how it feels to be, living every day.
You do go into the custodian of ways as well, the hierarchy. I don't want to spoil too much, but the custodian ways is something that hasn't really been touched on, especially in Sylvan Kin. So in Sylvan Kin culture, for those that aren't familiar, because custodian ways are kind of their leaders, and it's not always one person that has that title. It's kind of like a very senior person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Welsh spelling, GADDWYS.
That's why I said custodian of ways instead of the Welsh name. No way I'm going to be able to spell that. It is on the wiki. It's a GARDDRWS. That's how to technically say it.
In Welsh, the double D is a sound. So gaff.
I'm not even going to be that. I will offend someone if I even try to pronounce that. I can't even say Reutener, let alone freaking Welsh. Come on, give me a break.
He said it.
No, shut up. Quiet. No, that's just anyway. But yeah, you kind of, because this is the first kind of diving into that kind of thing, because Sylvan King, as it's established in the rise of the Celestians, Sylvan King are essentially the proto elves, and then from that they went off to become, some stayed as Sylvan King, and some became Northern kindred and all the elves as we know it today, and then obviously those went off and became Twilight Kin, but Sylvan King are definitely still those proto. I wouldn't say proto elves, but they're still kind of, from an intelligent point of view, they're not less intelligent. They're just a different kind of elf, and I think this book kind of helps establish some of that more grounded, more like modern lore of what Sylvankin are, because we don't have too much of it. So seeing custodian ways, and there actually gave me a little, I know that, I know that reference. I know it's like that meme, I know that reference, and I think that's cool. And starting to see more of what a modern Sylvankin is in relation to all the other elves, because I think they're very different in my interpretation.
I wanted them to be very much part of the earth, part of the trees, part of the animals, almost like they live quite ferally, while still being as part. And the actual Sylvankin as well. There's like the Sylvankin that are like regular elves that still live in the court of Illyrith. But then there's the Fae, the very feral ones. So to get away from the aspect of the regular elves and the Twilight Kin, I wanted to concentrate more on the Fae, just to give them that these are very, very, very different from the other two sets. They're not in it quite as much, but there are a couple of scenes that really dive into the mindset and the culture. One of those sections actually came about by accident, because I was chatting with Brandon. In the story, obviously there are Night Stalkers, and as it says in the blurb, Alana's the main character. She's having dreams, and he's like, I think we need a name for what it is. I was like, no, I'm definitely through the story and the editing, he'll be like, I think we might need to remove this section, or I think we need a little bit there, or that might need rewording, basic editing stuff. Mostly, I'd argue a little bit. We'd discuss it as normal. But that was one thing I was like, I really don't want that to happen. I don't want to give it a name. What's wrong with her? If you base every single fantasy ever, there's a problem. We don't know what's wrong. We'll automatically find a wizard who knows exactly what this problem is, or any team ever that goes into a cave will automatically always have an archaeologist who happens to know this exact ancient script which releases the demon. It's so obvious.
Convenience. You're trying to take out the convenience of the story.
Yeah, as soon as you name what's wrong with Alana, it stops being a mystery, it stops being a horror, it becomes a Netflix teen special. So I wanted to keep that mystery in, but he wanted it explaining more. It's like, as soon as you give it a name, it's that thing. And I didn't want to make it a thing, because in medieval times, if there's something wrong with you, what's that? You're an epileptic, or are you possessed by the devil? And if it's something you don't know what it is, can you imagine being in medieval times or Dark Ages, ancient civilizations, where somebody's got a medical condition, they're behaving very erratically, contrary to the society, and you can't explain what it is? The fear and the panic is like, is this going to spread to the rest of the society? I mean, nowadays we shove a camera up your bum and they know what it is in seconds. But back then it was like a terrifying. That wasn't a personal reference, by the way.
Well, the way I see it is that you will either be shunned from society, or a religion will be formed around you. Those are the two consequences if it happens back in the day. You're either a religion, you'll be a messiah, or you're expelled from society. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. Yeah.
So I wanted to keep that mystery, and one of the Sylvankin things, they go into like a womb of their people, It's almost like a dreaming sensation. I've read loads of books over the years, but one of them's a writer called Manda Scott. She did the Boudica series, and they go into a lot about dreaming in there and like being part of the earth. And so I wanted to get that kind of old Celtic feel. So they go into this place and he kind of looks inside a mind. So, and that really, really tells a lot about the culture. So rather than saying Sylvan Kin are like this, I wanted to put in scenes and feelings and thoughts that show more about the culture and let the reader make up their mind more than telling them Basilians are all pious and they all behave like this. I wanted to show the characters, and I wanted to almost for the reader to use their imaginations, make the mind up of what they're like.
Yeah.
By showing them the culture. So show somebody a new culture, they're going to look at the evidence, they're going to make up their own mind about it, as opposed to this is what they're like. So
show not tell, as they say.
Yeah, showing the Sylvan Kin like that, it just gave me a lot of freedom to explore with it. It's not a big section, but a few small things tells you a lot more about the culture than, writing everything down as a wiki. It's a separate thing.
Personally attacked again, but it's all right, Daddy. I'll forgive you.
No,
I guess
it's separating like let's say that franchise, reading the background in the rule book, fantasy.
Yeah, I get it.
Set out in lore, and a deep dive in a book, just letting your mind wander, exploring that culture through the story. It's all about the characters and the story. They just happen to be in Pannilore, and it just makes it feel a lot more natural that way for me. I say we've got loads of different authors. They approach it all in different ways, but this is something I felt I could add. Other authors are good at. They have their own niches. I mean, what's Mike Rossi's book called?
Honest Price.
Honest Price. That is Hollywood, man. Reading that, it's a great story, but there's a couple of bits in there I'm just like, that should be a movie section. That should have Dwayne Johnson. It's just spectacular.
No, you don't want Dwayne Johnson. He'll take ownership of it and try and twist it to be something it definitely was not.
But that kind of Hollywood, whoa, hell yes moment. Mine's different to that. I don't have a Hollywood moment like that, but
it's kind of doing what James Gunn is trying to do with the DCU, and I know this main date horribly depending on how it goes, but he's coming. They're coming up with Clayface later this year. I think later this year, or is it next year? They're coming out with Clayface, and that's supposed to be this horror kind of story. It's not supposed to be like a Superman kind of like big blockbuster and so forth, and you're getting these different stories set in the same universe. And I think this is a good example of being able to show a different type of story than what we saw in Steps and Deliverance or Honor's Price, or even Pride of the King, because the Pride of the King was definitely a bit more of a mystery novel and political intrigue and all that stuff. And I think that's so important.
It's almost quite Games of Thronesian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it definitely. I really like that element, and I think in order for Pannilore to become
something the law needed.
Definitely. And you want that. You want to show that this world has so many different ways of it being interpreted and how many stories it can tell, because it has definitely grown beyond just a fantasy world that we play on the table, right? You're getting all these novels. There's 20 plus novels now that's set in canon-wise in the Pannilore universe. We're now getting those characters on the table as part of the game. We're seeing this big expanded universe, and some people hate that, but I love that, because it gives so many different creators like yourself the opportunity to come and tell stories set in the same universe, and to do it well. I mean, I'm Rage of Race, and this is a little bit inside now because I haven't finished the book, so I shouldn't say, but it is becoming one of my favorite books just because of how much of a different aspect of the world it's taking in a universe that I've read quite a lot of books in my bookshelf. I'm pointing over here because all my books are there. No one can see it. But yeah, it's definitely taking a different element for it. And I would encourage I would say so far anyway, that this book is really good to introduce someone into the lore that likes this kind of lore. Don't get them to read the normal lore books you get with fourth edition. If you give them this and go, this is the universe, I think you're going to get a different type of person interested in the Pannilore universe. The only problem is if they're not into the game, it makes it quite hard to get further into it.
Yeah, but I've read a lot. When I say I've read a lot of fantasy stuff over the years, I mean, I was reading my mum's Anne Rice books when I was like 13, 14. They're like that. I mean, Anita Blake Vampire Hunter books, there's like 10 of them. I read all the True Blood, read all the Twilight. I was forced to read the Twilight.
You probably shouldn't brag about reading the Twilight on the book if you're trying to sell the book.
There's a huge, I mean, I must have read over 200 Black Library Games Workshop stuff.
There you go.
There's a huge amount of romantasy out there these days, which is stupidly popular. Stuff like Sarah J. Maas. And I wanted to bring in that wider, what's the term? Wider aspect from different authors writing those type of books. I wanted to bring a little bit more into that. So, like, when my friends are like, I don't know what to. My girlfriend really likes reading. Dan, you like books. My girlfriend really loves reading. Can you recommend something? I was like, yes, I can. Get this Laura K. Hamilton book, the Meredith Gentry one. Get the first one in that story, and you can thank me later. I wanted to have something that, like, I mean, the main three characters are all women, and some of the side characters as well. It's so if a girl wants to get into, like, I'm not really too sure about this game. It's just like, where's a good entry for you? And it's not meant to be for girls. It's just those characters just happen to be women. Men enjoy it just as much. I don't see that difference between this is a man's game or this is a girl's book. It's different aspects of it appeal to different people, and I wanted to have that aspect as well a little bit stronger. So, I mean, your girlfriend goes, "Oh, what you playing, like toy soldiers?" And they can go, "Read that. You might like it a bit more." I wanted to have it as a regular novel as well as being a Kings of War novel, because it's Tales of Pannilore. It's all about the story, but it's set in Pannilore.
And I was going to say it was going to be the first female-led book, but I didn't realize Duran Secrets came first. So he beat you out there. But I think this is definitely the first elf book, and definitely first of many things. And luckily, we've done very well dancing around any spoilers. So eventually, we'll have you back on again to actually dive deep into the spoilers, and I'm trying to avoid it as much as I can, which is quite hard because all you want to do when you talk about a book is to talk about what's the contents of a book. So being able to dance around it, I think we've done a good aspect of it. So I'm going to hit you with some quick fire questions, and it's really to help sell the book. So there's not going to be, you don't need to go too far into it. You can just say one word answers. But I guess, all right, who's your favorite character in the book? It doesn't have to be the main character. You have to pick one. You can't elaborate. What was that? Sorry, Maisel. All right. What's your favorite part of the book? The start, the middle, or the end?
Just before the end.
Just before the end. Okay.
The build up.
It feels like a safe answer. What's your biggest regret? That you left out of the book, but you can't elaborate too much.
Bit of a longer answer for this one. One of the
without
things...
spoiling, because you have to dance around the spoiler. That's the trick.
There's one of the elves in the books is conversing with the Night Stalkers, and I was like, how do you quantify doing something like that? Like, you can't just say, oh, I'm dealing with the Night Stalkers. You can't have a name like that and not know it's evil. So throughout the novel, I put in that he was referring them, when he was talking to other people about them, he referred to them as the ancestor kin, because they were elf souls that had been torn away, and that's how he was justifying it to other people and himself. And Mantic thought that'd be a bit confusing, like, who are the ancestor kin? This isn't in the background type of thing. It was like, there's one or two little things like that I liked in for a psychological reason to build a character, and the couple of little things like that got stripped out. That I would have liked.
We'll have to dive into it in the spoiler one. I'm going to bring that back up again.
Why it got taken out, but
yeah,
I think it really helped with that character in that situation. But whatever, it's
the joys of editing in a universe, interconnected universe with established lore. So it's one of those things. But I will bring that back up when we go through the spoiler of when exactly that was. It'll be interesting, and for those that are reading the book, that'll be good to listen out of when that moment would have been. When good to put in there. And I guess if you weren't going to write Elves again, which faction would you write for?
I don't know. I think I like writing about races I don't like as much, because it makes me think about them more and how I'd like to read a story about them.
I think you should do the Vargar.
To be honest, I've got a sequel to this planned. I haven't run it past Brandon or Matt because I think they wanted to see how well this.
That's just fair.
While I was waiting for this, I've also written a short story called "The Salt in Our Blood" for the Armada novel compilation.
Yeah, and we should mention that I think Brandon's mentioned a couple of times that there is an Armada compilation that he's been building for a little while, and I do know. I guess I didn't want to. I guess we'll reveal that you're doing one of them, but it'll be interesting to see once that comes out, because I've heard some positive stuff about that compilation that's been built. So I can't wait to. Hopefully that gets launched eventually, and I think it's been in the works for a little while now.
And I've also done a novel for the Warpath universe called Cascade.
I didn't realize that. Is there any news on that, or do you know that's just it's probably in the same holding pattern that everything else is?
Same holding pattern. Like I said, that waiting for so long for this one to come out, it hasn't been such a massive drama because I've done plenty of other stuff in the meantime as well. So
the joys of being a writer, I guess. Yeah, I think one of the reason why I try and do these episodes about the book and try and kind of push it so much is that unfortunately it's obviously not the main business of Kings of War, so the novels don't sell as well as I hope they do. But the more we put them out there, the more people get on board with it and get into this lore, the more opportunities writers like yourself will have to publish these stories in the future.
Yeah, it's a niche. It's a niche story within a niche market. But that's why I said I wanted it to be more of a broader story, more character-based as opposed to world-based. So other people, if they're maybe interested in it, but they're not sure if it's that type of thing, it's something they can come in. And it works as a horror story as well.
100%. And I'll put a link for everyone that's curious there. I'll put a link down below how to get the digital and the physical copy. I'm a physical copy myself. I find it easier to read when I've got something physically in my hands, but I'll put both editions down below because you can obviously get it in both ways. So I guess we'll start it. Well, I think we've danced around it enough. And
the shop in England.
What was that, sorry?
The shop in there's an independent bookstop in Oxford called Blackwell's. I always get my novels from there, so I've been telling everybody about that, and they've sold out of it. So
oh, nice! Congratulations! I've heard good like the feedback that I've seen so far is extremely positive. So you should be very proud of yourself.
People I wasn't expecting, and I was like, oh wow, cheers, man!
Yeah, I think it's so hard nowadays to get more positive feedback on the internet than negative. You typically always hear about the negative stuff because people aren't shy away from that. But it's good to see that positivity, definitely, especially in the Kings of War community, where we get a lot more of the negative than we get the positive sometimes. But yeah, it's good to see that, especially supporting people that do love the game and that have now become part of the universe, like yourself, and you're part of a growing list of contributors that have had their stories now made canon. I think Ben Stoddard is a good example. Mark is a good example. Mike Rossi, as we mentioned earlier, all of them, all those players started as just fans, and then now they're part of that history, and now you're part of that history in the world. So you definitely should be 100% proud of yourself on that one, regardless of how it's interpreted.
I'm already famous in the community already. This is just like, a bonus, man.
Well, I mean, you're more famous for now outside of maybe the local Kings of War community, and especially for us dirty Southerners down here in the world. Southerners is a different interpretation over in England, but Southerners down here, we don't really get to experience what the community kind of aspect you guys do. I mean, I've never even talked to somebody in person about Kings of War. That's how it's
I'm super
so
lucky.
small down here.
Where I am down in the south, I'm like down in the Surrey Hills, down just in the countryside out of London. And where I am, I've got about 10 different TOs do tournaments within an hour and a half drive of me. So I can do 1 to 2 tournaments a month if I need to. So it's
that would be amazing. It would be amazing to go to a Kings of War tournament. There is one that goes down in Christchurch every few months, but unfortunately for my situation, it's quite hard. I can't internationally travel now, obviously, but I would love to go down to Christchurch to watch that tournament, just to be at a tournament. Like, I've always wanted to go to a Kings of War tournament. It's just not something. There's not too many around, unfortunately. But yeah, it's so great to see. Yeah.
So I'll do the coverage for Clash again, and I'll send
you. Yeah. For those, I guess we should mention, for those that have listened to MUP for a while, he is the roaming reporter that everyone hears about that does go to all these different tournaments. So, but yeah, it's good to have you part of the MUP team. Yeah.
I must have done 15 to 20 episodes for MUP now, something like that. I've done all the MUP stories,
something like that. Yeah, and I really hope we bring back the MUP stories. I think that's the MUP, for those that didn't know, MUP stories was something that Walt used to do on the channel, and used to be these fan constructed stories, and being able to kind of read them out and give this read out stories of people's armies and histories. I really hope one day we'll be able to bring it back. So if you're interested in helping with that, reach out.
Absolutely, I'll
maybe get Danny to help you out with it.
I did a lot of the voice recording, like a couple of ones people phoned in and I read them out, sent the script in. I did it as an audio one. Me and James Dunbar, we did the big one at Clash last year. So James,
I remember we had a video of that. Yeah,
Claws on the Plane. So after you've read my book and bought that, you can go out and buy James's and buy that, because that's one of the best. Certainly one of my favorites. So basically we played a battle. It was I bullied Steve Hildre. I was like, Steve, we're doing this. Can you put us on the live stream? Game 1. So I lost because I had 2 double ones in a row. So I'm going to blame it on that.
And you can actually see the battle because I dubbed the story over the footage. So on the YouTube, you can actually see the game that Danny's referring to take place while that audio is playing. I was pretty proud of that edit because it took me a while to do, but I liked it.
You don't get much more interactive than that, do you? I mean, the authors write a story about it, read by one of the authors while they're playing the game. It's the best we could do.
Yeah.
And it's little stuff like that, just, bringing the lore alongside the game. If 1 or 2 people look at that and go, I'm quite interested in the lore now, I might go and have a look. So, because the lore for Pannilore is fantastic.
And it's growing, and it's new as well, which makes the opportunities to which way it's going to go limitless. We don't really know a lot. Still a lot. I've got the map behind me, and we still don't know a lot of that about that world. And there's still so many stories that need to be fleshed out in the history of races and all that. It's got to be quite interesting, and seeing now the integration between the novels and what's playing on the table and the rule books and all that, getting that a lot more cohesive, and it's an exciting time for the lore. And I think that's one area that, despite all the complaints about the rules of that or fourth and all that, I think a lot of people can agree that the world building has been amazing during the 4th edition run.
It's what I've felt for a long time Pannilore needed, was because it's a big map and all the races are stretched out. They needed some kind of big event to basically bring the story all together. To quote Warhammer, they needed a storm of chaos, and the Zakali invasion is that, really. And to do it with such a strange race.
Yeah.
And I really read them in. I've read the Siege of Callanspire.
Siege of Callanspire, yeah.
And in the invasion book, all the background for the Zakali is fantastic. I mean, for Rage and Grace, I said I had a sequel planned if I get one at some point. But now, looking at it, what I wanted to do with the story, I can definitely put the Zakali in there as another foil. So even in my mind with the lore, what I've got planned out, what I'd like to do, that's changing constantly with the lore as it's going on and adapting. And that map's fantastic. I'd love to do a novel of adventurers going east and just finding weird, odd things, almost like a Land Before Time or Journey to the Center of the Earth. And
there's a lot of stuff that we don't know that we've touched on. Like, we've got the Oni over there, which is sounds like a bit like rift infused ogres, kind of. It's kind of magic infused. And then you got hobgoblins now. They're becoming more and more of an interesting race. The naming conventions for hobgoblins, we haven't looked into it. Look into it on Fracture. It's
Morlocks in the south as well, isn't there? Morlocks in the
correct,
south.
yeah. And they're described like as dwarf-like beings or something like that. It's very vague of what they are.
Do you know where the Morlocks come from originally?
In terms of general lore, or do you mean Pannilore lore?
General lore. The Morlocks were the bad ones in what's it? H.G. Wells, the time traveling. I've forgotten it.
I'm thinking of Warcraft Morlocks now.
Yeah, H.G. Wells, the Time Machine. If there was an original movie of it, and he basically it's a Victorian time machine. And he goes back in time, and he finds all these peaceful people called the Eloi, and they all have to hide at night because the Morlocks come up out of the ground and kidnap them and take them away to be eaten or whatever. So that sounds like a
kind of reminds me of I Am Legend in a weird way.
I only watched that once. I thought it was crap, so I never watched it again.
Well, the book version rather than the actual movie. But in Pannilore universe, this is all we know about the Murlocs. The Murlocs are a breed of bestial, dwarf-like beings who profane technology, defied every magic known to the Elves, located in the deep underground to the east, originally found by the Twilight Kin. Yeah, that's all we know about the Murlocs.
Greyish green skin with long straggly white hair, and they had glowing eyes. Actually, they did a remake with what's his face? He played he was in Neighbours.
That doesn't narrow it down for me at all.
And in Prometheus as well. He was Dr. Wayland in Prometheus.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. He was in it. It's an all right remake. It's a good fun Sunday afternoon science fiction movie. So yeah, that's where Morlocks. Reading in the background as well.
Guy Pearce. Do you mean Guy Pearce?
Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
I was thinking Mike from Neighbours. From 1987. When
if they came from Shortland Street, I might know them, but outside of that, I have no idea. But I guess we'll wrap things up now. I think we've danced around it enough. But as I said, all the links to Rage and Grace will be down below. Please support the books, and I think this is one of the good ones. And honestly, every book that now comes out has got good quality behind it. We haven't really had a dud for Kings of War since it really started. They've just got kind of better. Everyone's got their own interpretations, but I do think that every book that's coming out at the moment are so good quality. I think in hindsight, I'll may change my mind, but at the moment they do it. I've loved every one of them. So do definitely support the lore, and I really appreciate Danny for taking the time to pop on a late Friday. So he's missing out on drinking. So hopefully I finished it early enough for him to go out.
What do you mean I've been giving up? I've been drinking while you've been talking.
My mispronunciation. Now you're gonna make me paranoid. Every time I'm gonna record now.
It's my little handmade Viking cup, because I do historical reenactment as well, fighting with steel weapons. And this is like a proper handmade Viking cup. And that's my little whiskey cup. It's got some Jim Beam black cherry bourbon, because I'm fancy as shit.
Wow. La-di-da. Sadly, because of my condition, I haven't drunk since I found out about it. But the first alcohol drink that I have after my transplant is actually going to be the rum that they give out at tournaments for Kings of War. Yeah, that's it. Ronnie actually sent it to James, who does my MUP Halo episodes. He's actually got it, and we're trying to figure out a way to get it to New Zealand, because apparently it's very difficult to ship alcohol to New Zealand in the right way. So we're trying to get that here. Obviously, it's just going to sit there and wait for it to be touched. But I had to get a little Viking cup. You have to send me a Viking cup, and I'll drink my first shot of rum after the transplant as a bit of a celebratory drink. It'll be really good.
I shall. I'll find you something nice. Actually,
amazing.
My friend, for my 18th birthday, so that we're knocking time, he gave me this little bottle of 2 Jack Daniel's miniatures in a little tin, and I've kept them in a box ever since. And I always promised myself I'd drink it when I got my first record contract. And we released all our own stuff, so we technically never had a proper record contract, so I never drunk it. So I've got some Jack Daniel's miniatures from 1999, something like that. So my copy actually arrived today, so I am going to take out my little Viking toasting bowl, and I'm going to drink my bourbon on Sunday night to got a publishing deal. Wasn't
as you should. No, it's at the end of the day, it's still a massive achievement. I mean, people think about doing stuff like that and never do it, and you've actually pulled the trigger on it and you've got it done. And I think that's definitely an achievement you want to lock away.
Oh, I wrote a book years ago. I've got a Viking fantasy one just sat on my laptop. I wrote in the mid 2000s, but like publishing, it's really, really hard to get a published book. I did it for a couple of months, and I just got bored. I was like, I'll come back to it another day, and lots of other things in life to do. So I was like, I enjoy the experience of writing it. So yeah, I've got one in the tank just in case.
You never know. And life is funny like that, and you never know. So yeah, thanks a lot, Danny. This is actually going to be a Danny week, so this is going to be the first episode with Danny on it. Later this week, he's going to be part of the Ogre review that will be coming out as well. So it's a week full of MUP Danny. So
you can never.
No, not at all. Exactly. So I really appreciate you coming on, Danny. We'll rope you in again. And I always like to give about 6-month embargo from when the book comes out before we start talking about spoilers, just so everyone can sink it in. And that's the rule for the wiki as well. But if you have any questions as you read through it, if you want to be part of that conversation, leave a comment in the Discord. We've got a Facebook. Leave comments, subscribe, all that fun stuff people do. Danny's in the Discord as well. So if you've got any questions, post it there. And I'm sure just harass them, tag them.
An event,
harass them.
Say hi. I will sign any body part you wish me to. I am not a shy man.
All right, we're gonna leave it there before we get charged for something. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. I really do appreciate it, and I guess until next time.
Beautiful. Cheers, guys.
Kia ora.